Okay. Any prayer requests tonight before we get
Hey,
going?
what about our devotion?
That's what I'm doing.
Oh, you're doing
prayer requests.
our prayer requests are our devotions?
Yep, I'm kind of doing it a little backwards.
Why?
Because I don't have one tonight.
Ew. You
Well,
should have
okay.
told me to like bring my Jesus calling
I
or something. That would have been
All right, well, I did talk. And
Did you hear about him?
What?
Getting lost.
Who?
Who wrote Jesus Calling?
It was a lady, I thought. Sarah.
Oh, never mind. I was thinking of another one.
Who?
The guy who wrote the book, and he has diabetes, and he got lost and had a heart attack and was missing.
Oh, my.
Who was this?
I don't remember what his name was.
Max Lucado?
No, it wasn't him.
I was just saying that.
I'll look it
It's
up.
kind of
What?
Yeah.
But they found him.
He's not dead, though?
No.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Well, I was talking to undergraduates. I have a freshman seminar group that I do. It's a freshman studies class, and they're all whining and complaining and belly aching about not being able to, get stuff done, and I'm tired, and I don't feel good, I'm sick, and I just failed my first 3 tests.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so, and they were actually, honest, they were all worried. You guys remember back when you were freshmen, for a long time ago. They're actually worried, and I'm trying to calm their fears. And one girl actually came out and said, well, I've been praying about this, whatever. She didn't tell me what it was, but I did it for a long time, and I've never gotten an answer. So how long do I keep praying? How long do I stick it out? And, well, geez, well, that's a hard question, So I use a couple examples. Example of my dad. My dad passed away about 4 years ago. I prayed for my dad, but he didn't get healed, so he died. So does that mean God didn't help me? No, it doesn't mean that.
Unanswered prayers.
Exactly. I mean, and he died for a specific reason. If he'd have lived, he'd have been not too happy. His early Alzheimer's stages and stuff. And so does God work when we don't think He's working? Well, absolutely. So, and I said, no matter what they think or say or do, or whatever I think or say or do, no matter what happens, God is still God. No matter if it's outcome that we like or don't like, God is still God. So I said, you just got to take it at that. And if you can't take it at that, well then you're never really going to truly be happy or satisfied. So God is still God. So there's your double devotion, okay?
Henry Blackaby.
Henry Blackaby.
Experiencing God.
Yes.
So Jesus Calling, experiencing God.
Hey,
so close. 2 different names, but so close. Yeah.
You were able to pull the teacher, spur, you gotta be flexible.
Absolutely.
You
Yes.
gotta come up with
Kristen.
things out of the blue.
Your question?
I had a question about the RTI paper. Do you have the rubric for it?
Yeah, if you go
It's
all the way
online.
at the very bottom, it says rubrics, and
It
then you
doesn't
click
have a
on that.
page number.
It doesn't. You have to go to rubrics, and you have to scroll down and find it in those rubrics that I've given.
So
I
that could
forgot
be
the
like,
name. So I'm leaving it to you to find it. I could actually move it there too. So
I have 2 prayer requests.
Yes,
One
ma'am.
of them is, it's not silly. My dog of 17 years is dying. It's a Yorkie. So a Yorkie of 17 years.
that
like-
is so
And
sad.
That's
so,
sad.
I know it is, but my mom is the one who has it, and she's taking it really hard. And so it's more for my mom.
it's part of the family.
I know, but it's more for my mom.
Dogs become
She's
a part
just
of the
silly about it. Like
Yeah.
she's been holding her for like 2 days straight, and
Oh.
sitting on the couch
Hey.
holding her, and it's like.
So pretty mainly for
And
your
then she
mom.
looked at me yesterday. She goes, "Well, how should we decorate her box?"
Hey, it becomes like a
I'm like-
kid.
Yeah.
So that's one of them. And then the other thing is, I just found out that our church has an opening for an assisted children's minister,
Huh?
which is either a royal answer to prayer or Satan is royally taunting me.
Yeah.
But they have a rule that family members can't work at the church, and my dad's the worship minister. And so I don't know. It's one of those things that it's like,
Yeah.
it really does kind of feel like God kind of opening a door, but at the same time, I'm like,
Is he
it's black
slamming it shut too at the same time?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like I got stuck in the door, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
so I don't know if it's still God answering prayers, because I mean, it's one of those things, it's an assistant position, it's not like I do working.
Yeah.
Same, I have no power. I can't do
Yeah. It
anything.
wouldn't hurt to pursue it. All they can do is say no.
I know. And
Just
so
don't try
that
to
was
get your
just
dad
really- I
fired.
found that out
Yeah, exactly.
today. I found that out
Oh, okay.
today, and so it's one of those things that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Like, feeling a little
Sure,
emotional
sure,
roller
sure.
coaster here
I
with my
understand.
dog and my potential new job.
Well, we'll be praying that you get the job if God wants you there. It'd be very cool.
That'd be very cool.
Pray that I get a long-term sub,
Yes.
so that I don't have to stop working
Yes.
and do this stupid practicum.
Yeah, I
'Cause I need the moolah.
absolutely. Now I had to put in a request for a practicum for you, so if you can get a long-term sub, we can always move it. It's not that big a deal. So we're looking. I sent a request for U3 for a practicum, so hopefully we can get that soon.
I'm trying to keep my eyes and ears open for pregnancy.
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully neither of you guys will hear I'm sorry, we can't have you here because I determined it's a conflict of interest between school and family.
Yeah.
What? I was originally gonna do my practicum at the school where my student goes for specials.
Yeah.
You know, if I do it 2 hours on B days when he's there till 10:10, I bring him into school, I'm there for 2 hours, I take him back and do my regular day. I didn't find out till earlier this week how litigiousness and argumentative it is between the family and this particular school, so it makes sense now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got an email saying no, it's a conflict of
Yeah.
interest.
Well, we'll pray. We can pray for that situation too with the parents, but definitely pray that you three get the practicum you need. And after I pray, don't let me forget. I got a little update on the K-12 stuff. Okay. Any other prayer requests?
I mean, always.
Absolutely. All right, I'll pray for us. Father, we stop just for a second to think about you and what you've done for us. We bring every one of these students' needs before you, even if they were unspoken. I pray for Amanda as she's gone from us tonight with school. I pray that you just help her during this time. Father, I pray for Micah and Leah and Kristen and Rachel and Jess. Father, that their needs are met. And Father, there's so many things that need to be taking place in their lives that need to be healed or something needs to happen or just whatever. Father, you know everything about our lives and about what's going on. And Father, we have to stop and realize that you still are God no matter what. And Father, help us just relax a little bit tonight and focus on our topics at hand and help us, Father, just to get a little more information on how to become better teachers and how to reach those students around us. In your name we pray. Amen. Oh yeah, okay.
K-12 thing.
K-12 thing. All right, been checking with the state of Kansas. Remember I said, okay, you're gonna have to have methods, 2 methods. No, I think we've worked it out to where you take the 1 methods class, which is the next class, and you take, and it really doesn't matter for you, so whatever you're doing. So for those you want to do K-12, you take the 1 methods class and you take 2 separate practicums that are opposite. So if you're in elementary, the next one will be secondary, so you will end up being second. So the very last
that cost
practicum will be
extra?
opposite. No, it's the same amount of money. You have to have 2 practicums anyway. You will just make the second practicum the secondary. So
Could
Jess,
the
if you can
junior
get in
high
secondary.
be technically
Yes.
counted for,
Yes,
like middle school could be counted as one in elementary?
that's correct. That is correct.
So I can do mine with my 6th grade person and then just find a 7th or 8th grade.
That's
person.
correct. That's right. You got the best of both worlds.
Seriously?
Will that
So-
work if I go to the high school?
Then your last one will be at the
Will
elementary.
be at the elementary school, so
That's
I just have to find an elementary school that
That's
works.
right. And then for you and Amanda, who cares? I'm doing whatever. Then the professor knows your situation.
Oh, you looked,
Yeah.
did he look?
Uh,
You're just saying
I
that.
know. Professor Stubblefield knows your situation. And she said it's happened before. It's going to make it more rigorous for you, different,
Oh.
because you already have your K-12's licensure. It's just going to be, she's going to be creative with you.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Watch out,
So-
that might not be a good thing.
Well, I don't think she's trying to kill you. She's just trying to make it different for you since you've already been through
Kidding.
Thanks
it.
for clarifying that she's not trying to kill us.
Yeah, she's not trying to kill you.
Because I was gonna
Because
be
it's on
real
video.
about that.
So we
Exactly.
already say that. You need a little
Professor Dr. Stubblefield she's one of the higher ups at Lawrence School District, and I can't remember.
Lawrence.
In Lawrence,
Like,
yeah.
so I wonder if she lives in Lawrence. and
I
she
believe,
knows.
I don't know.
So she'll drive every week.
I'm not sure. All right. Notice I did not put the quiz up,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm turning it on right now.
Ah.
We noticed.
I looked at the end of the school day.
Mhm.
I was
noticed
looking last night, like
I
extra close.
When
too.
I put it on, it was automatically turned on, and I went, "Oh no! I bet Mike is looking right now."
I checked every 30 minutes.
See, I knew it.
Like what I do with Stuff Finder, check it, refresh.
What I'm gonna do is turn the thing on now.
It's on.
It
The
is.
quiz is on?
No.
The quiz
It's
for
not.
week 4?
On yours,
No.
not on ours.
Bring it on, Leah.
It's not.
What week am I on? 5.
Hey, totally side note, anyone here have an iPhone who likes the new updates?
My husband just updated
I
last
like it.
night and he thinks it's weird.
I
I
love
have it on my iPad.
I have this really cool flip phone from Walmart.
Oh my
It's so
God.
far-
Dude,
Dude,
Because
Because
seriously.
yours flips.
No,
Mine
ser-
doesn't even flip.
seriously, it's really awesome. I lose about 3 phones a year coaching.
Are you
So-
serious?
I've got about 3 or 4 phones out there in the tall grass that I practice with right now.
Why don't you look for it?
You're embarrassing me, Mike.
You can't find it.
So you have to push every button 3 times to get to the right letter?
What's that?
On your phone, you
Yes,
have to
when he-
push the button to get to the right letter?
When he's texting,
Yes.
you text on that
Yes,
thing?
yes, I still have that kind of. I can't keep that things.
Oh goodness.
Here in a second, we're going to do this, but I don't want you writing anything down.
Oh.
I'm going to have you explain questions to me again. I've watched a series called Inspector Lewis. It's BBC. I don't know if you've ever heard of it before. But I've got Netflix, which is it's just the bane of my existence. And I absolutely love it. I'd
love
sell a
Netflix.
kidney for Netflix.
It's only $8 a
I
week.
know, I know. I've watched it, and there's 5 seasons, and each episode of Inspector Lewis is an hour and a half.
Wow.
So, and there's 5 seasons of it, and each season's about 4 or 5 episodes. So,
Oh.
It's based in Oxford, England, and it's based at Oxford University, Oxford police detectives, but everything is based around Oxford University. I don't know if you guys know anything about Oxford University. I did not know anything about it until I started watching the show and looking into it. But the way they they do lecture just like classes, but then they have tutorial sessions with professors. So it'd be like all 6 you come into my office and we hang out for an hour or 2. We do that like every day or 3 times a week or something like that. So Oxford is interesting like that. They've got like 12 or 13 different colleges within Oxford. So there's college of this or such and such college has a different name than Oxford University. So, but they do it a little different. They do tutorials. So, and I was watching one today with a guy that was he was a history professor or something, and just asking his students, okay, tell me about this, and they just sit there and listen to each other, and they dialogue and stuff about it. So I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to do that per se, but I want us to answer these questions aloud in class and see what we all think. And if you have anything to add to the answer, I want you to do that. So we'll just work our way around. Let's see here. Micah, choose somebody to go first. Ooh, I know, it's tough.
Leah.
Oh, I knew it. Leah, you got your number 1 question.
Okay.
What's adaptive special education? Without looking at anything, you too.
I'm not looking at anything. I'm just copying
She's
and gonna
Googling.
write down what she
She's
said.
Googling right now.
Just to have
Yes. Oh, I
Word
see.
document.
I see. So what's adaptive? This should be easy for you. If it's not, I'm going to come back and hit you with a chair. So
Adaptive
So is
that
education is what I do.
it's exactly what you do. Yeah. So
Teaching students who have mild-ish disabilities. Yes.
Who can function
Very good.
in
That's-
the classroom.
that comes from an expert right there. That's good. That's a
Who
good.
can function in the classroom.
And can function in a general ed classroom. What else do you want to add with that?
That's
About the
The
curriculum.
curriculum's the
The
same.
curriculum is accommodated, not
Accommodated,
modified.
not
Very
Because what
good.
you're trying to do is you're trying to
Trying to
get
get
them,
them right.
because they're performing below grade level,
Uh-huh.
but they're functional in the sense that they can be in the classroom setting, so they're extracurricular environment, you're trying to get them to perform at the level as someone else of their own grade level over a certain period.
Did he just answer this one?
I may have a little bit.
Yeah, he did, right? Anybody else want to add that? Does functional sped differ? How does it differ? You just said it pretty much, right?
Where it's not modified? I couldn't hear up all. I couldn't
Good
hear
question,
what you
yeah.
said.
Functional sped would be, it's modified, as opposed to adaptive sped is not modified. Whereas, and the easiest way for me to explain it, and the best words are, the curriculum is appropriate for adaptive sped, it's often not appropriate for functional sped.
And I also add, I think that in adaptive sped, the goal is to get the students to where they're functioning at grade level.
Bingo, yeah.
Functional.
So you're trying to remediate them to get them to function at grade level, absolutely. Whereas some students in functional sped may never get to grade level. And then I'm not underestimating their ability, ever. And I'm not underestimating the interest that they have, But we just know cognitively some of them can't do that. So we have to accept them for who they are, right? I either that's a lowercase L or a weird I. I don't know what lies.
You spelled
Which
it.
one?
List three. I thought I did. There's three characteristics of students diagnosed with each of these: LD, ED, BD, and then what was that one?
BD. Learning disabilities, emotional disorders, and behavior disorders.
Yeah, I thought there was
Communication
another
disorders
one.
and ADHD.
Communication disorders, ADHD. There we go. All right, so let's give some characteristics of LD. Who wants to take a stab at that? Rachel, thanks.
Learning disabilities is where they struggle specifically in one area.
Or more.
Or one or more, yeah. In other words, it's a specific area that gives them
Okay.
challenges. And typically they can function in a regular classroom. And isn't it true that their IQ is generally normal except for in the areas that they struggle in?
Typically, yes. Yeah. Good. Anyone else want to add any LD? Maybe a type of LD, or a level, or what do they call it? Characteristic? I mean, not characteristic. What's the word I'm looking for? A type of LD. Dyslexia. Very good. Very good. You know, it's interesting. Teaching my undergrads the same stuff, but I'm doing it real slow. We spent a whole 50 minutes just talking about the definition of LD, you know. So now I got to go tomorrow and start talking about dyslexia and dyscalculia and dysgraphia and so on. But those are different levels. Specific learning disability with memory also.
Take them to that website that, you know, you experience the disability.
Yes, I've got that on there. It was
Seriously.
pretty cool. Yeah. So that gives them a better insight on that. What about ED, BD? Jess?
Emotionally,
Uh-huh.
behavior. EB, what are the initials again?
ED,
Emotional disorder, behavior disorder.
That's right. Or disability or
Disability.
Oh, yeah.
Well, those are ones that usually, that might be, would ADD, ADHD go under that? Maybe?
No, that's a different diagnosis. But they may have some emotional behavior disorders along with a comorbid diagnosis.
Trying to think how to word it.
What are some characteristics of a person with an emotional disability?
Well,
Behavioral disorder?
Depending on how mild or moderate it is, some might not be able to function as well in the classroom, depending, because they're least restrictive to other students.
That's right. That's good. That's what you remembered something. That's good.
Behavior can function with their learning if they, I'm drawing a blank.
That's all right. That's okay. Anybody want to help her out?
Schizophrenia and
No.
Yeah, schizophrenia, bipolar. Yeah, those are two types of ED.
The more
They have challenging behaviors.
Challenging
Big challenging
There we go,
behaviors,
challenging behaviors, that's all we're
that may
learning
not
on
allow
the
them
other
to
class.
be in the regular classroom, or
Yeah.
their behaviors may be to the extreme that
Absolutely.
Some might be, would that be like, what we didn't talk about in the other class, might be on, behavior plan, that would be before they get to that? or-
Absolutely. This is basically, this right here is what you're dealing with a lot with your other class.
Okay.
FDA and BIP.
Yeah, exactly. Now, can you do FBA, BIP on the other
Oh,
students?
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can do them all of these. But if you're really focusing on poor, abnormal behavior, and I hate to say abnormal, even though punching your neighbor, spitting, biting, kicking is abnormal behavior to us, it's a normal behavior to them. So we have to then what do you do at
Appropriate behavior.
Functional Behavior Assessment, FBA and BIP? You do that to get them to appropriate behavior and remove the abnormal behavior and replace it with something
The
else.
inappropriate,
Inappropriate behaviors, yes.
using the
Abnormal
correct
behavior.
terminology.
I'm glad you said that, yeah. I can't say. All right, anything else with emotional behavioral disorders? So we talked about schizophrenia and bipolar, there's depression, PTSD, obsessive compulsive disorder,
But you know what?
ODD.
Totally
ODD.
random. When you say PTSD, thinking about, was it last week that we talked about all the, like those, maybe the week before that, about how those girls that are kidnapped, how they're
Yes.
functioning like they probably have post-traumatic disorder.
I
You would think.
would guarantee they have some type of post-traumatic stress disorder. They may be
Or those-
burying it or hiding it, and it may come out 20 years from now. Who knows?
Or those kids that like are sexually abused
That's right.
and come to school.
The mind is an interesting place.
The girl, the 12-year-old girl who was kidnapped by the 42-year-old man, and like her mom and brother were
Yes.
living together.
Found him in
She's
Utah
like
or
acting
something.
crazy right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. She's just acting out.
Right.
I expect that.
Right.
You know, I expect
And
something
so
like
I
that.
was reading an article and
Yeah.
like she's traumatized.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
absolutely.
she's not
Her mom and her
going to
brother
act
died.
normal right
Yeah,
now.
so her mom and brother's dead. She was kidnapped.
Mhm.
Who knows what he did to her?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what is she doing to act out? Now you may have kids in your classroom like that. They may be on the backside of starting to recover, you know, or getting in recovery. But you still have to deal with some of the characteristics that they have with that. Communication disorders, characteristics. Okay, you're gonna say they can't
They
communicate.
can
very well.
use,
Yeah, I
oh no,
understand
they
that,
can
yeah.
communicate,
They don't
you just gotta figure out how it works.
Yeah, they have some form of communication, but that is not atypical. No, it's not typical. It is atypical
It is
communication, or
Speech.
none. What else?
They can use alternative communication devices, whether
Absolutely.
it's text systems, voice boxes that they type in stuff.
So assistive technology is a great thing. Man, I keep forgetting I was going to bring my iPad and show you stuff. I don't even bring it. I'll bring it next time. But there's a ton of stuff for the iPad that's free
Wow.
that you can use for assistive technology for all the different types of disabilities. What else for
Well-
communication? No, you're right.
It might be kind of off track, but kind of with that. Saturday, you know, Ashley, she was MNU. She's now the president of PMI Cobble.
Yes.
She works in Turner.
Yes.
And she was telling us how she's a kid who is deaf and blind, and how she's getting like no support, and just how he's functioning in the classroom, and
Interesting.
like nothing to really accommodate him as far as, you know, being like, I guess he's not like 100% blind, like you can see
Yeah.
shadows, but
So legally
nothing to
blind.
really accommodate him. And she was saying like when they did his annual review at the beginning of the year, she hadn't even known him yet, and like just sped through it with, because her sister's on that IEP as well, and just sped through it. Didn't even like try to revise it to accommodate his.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now it's interesting you say that. Is a kid with that has a communication disorder. There are differences between them and a person that's deaf, blind, and mute.
Yeah.
That's like that
So
girl
me
that
too.
was, that you get a, what's it, speech language pathologist? Is that what that one girl that we saw in the video? Last
Yeah,
week?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that's right.
they can be corrected over.
That's right. If you have somebody that's either a mute or have selective mutism, do they have they have a communication disorder? Yeah, but are they being serviced for communication disorder? No, they're being serviced under another IDEA service instead as opposed to that.
Selective mutism is interesting.
Very
What
interesting.
is it called?
Selective mutism.
I had
They
a
just
friend of
choose
mine
not to
who
talk.
Two kids.
had that.
It is an interesting
Yeah.
thing.
They just choose not to talk.
And
Mhm.
that
Well,
that could go along
it's
with
not even necessarily
emotional behavior
choosing.
disorder
Yeah.
along with that. So I mean,
Just choose
And
not
it kind
to
of
follow.
presents itself as a behavior.
That's right.
emotional-
It's different than autism where they engage you with eye contact, like if you acknowledge, or they acknowledge that you're talking to them.
sometimes they won't. And yeah, it's a whole nother ballgame with selective mutism. That means selective mutism means that they were communicating before.
Oh.
Whereas autism, typically they're not going to communicate until they want to communicate. You know, something has not autism. Technically, nothing has happened that causes them to not communicate. They just don't want to. You know, for whatever reason. Selective mutism would be something happened that's caused them not to want to communicate with someone. And they may communicate at home, but not with you at school, or speak to anybody at school. Who knows?
Well, I mentioned the whole her student because she's like in that debacle. You know, she can't tell the parents like, "Hey, you should like fight for your child." You know,
Yeah.
not her place. that
Well, she
knows-
can, technically, she can help tell the parent to advocate for the child, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Because she's like, she doesn't want to be put in that position, but she knows that his needs aren't being met.
Yeah, I mean, she can always come up with the information that she, as a professional, can give the parent for the needs of the child and the needs of the child to be met. So it's not like she's saying, oh, they need to get diagnosed with something. She can go to them with academic characteristics of
Yeah, because like
this student's not
was
reading,
even-
writing, or whatever on grade level.
she was even
Or,
saying
yeah.
that like the school gets so much money a month for him.
Yeah.
To make those accommodations for like technology.
That's exactly right.
And they don't.
And if they're not using it, there's a problem.
Yeah.
So.
So I just thought that was interesting.
Anything else with communication disorder? I mean, what's one of them we saw in the video? What was the name of the disorder the little girl had? It did start with an A. That's correct.
Apraxia.
Apraxia. Very good. Cute as can be. Yeah. Stuttering would be also one of them.
Cousin, so he's my age, and still has a
Stuttering is an interesting one also. I mean, there was a country music singer that was a stutterer, but when he sang, he didn't stutter.
There, yeah, on American Idol, there was a
Yeah.
contestant. He stuttered when he talked, but
Yeah.
when he sang, not a stutter.
Okay, ADHD. Characteristics, types, stuff like that.
You. I'm just kidding.
That is very true.
Hyperactive.
Okay. Hyperactive.
or you can be, I guess, the opposite of
Yeah.
hyperactive.
Yeah, you can be like almost comatose
Comatose.
sometimes. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of fixation sometimes on
absolutely.
particular things.
What else? What types? How many types of there are there?
3.
3 different.
And what are they called? Type 1 is the predominantly hyperactive, right? The type 2 is,
Hyperactive and attention.
or yeah, you could switch it around. Hyperactive, you can have combined, and the third type would be predominantly inattention, right? So, and we don't call it just ADD anymore. We call it ADHD type 1, 2, or 3, right?
So one more time, so hyperactive is predominantly the number one.
Yeah, it
It
all
could be in any
depends where you
order.
look at it. It could be any order. You know, I've got a book that listed A, B, and C,
Okay.
and I've got another one that says type 1, type 2, type 3. But as long as you know there's 3 different types. So.
So hyperactive.
Predominantly hyperactive, predominantly attention,
Attention, and then,
and then combine both.
okay.
What else about ADHD? We didn't talk about meds in here at all.
About what?
Meds that goes along with that.
Ritalin?
Ritalin's one of
Ritalin.
them.
What is another one? It's Strattera.
Strattera's one of them. Concerta.
Concerta's another.
There's a bunch of stuff out on the market.
And how kids will try and sell it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some of it's a depressant, some of it's a stimulant. It all depends what the doctor prescribes for that. So, there's a lot of meds out there on the market, and not one med works for a particular kid. And I'm going to let you look that stuff up, even though this is just an intro class. So, meds can be changed, but it takes a while for them to come down off of them and get it's called titer. It builds up the blood level, amount of drug in their blood. It takes a while for that to switch over. Yeah. Anything else about ADHD? All right. Next question. We already talked about that one. What's dyscalculia, dyslexia, and dysgraphia?
Trouble with math, trouble with reading, trouble with writing.
Very good. That's pretty easiest way to put it, right? Math, reading, and writing, and that's typically, if you look at a learning disability, that's the areas you're going to have problems with the learning disability. Because they will, if you have trouble reading, you're going to also have trouble writing and doing math.
I'm trouble.
Yeah, it's all intertwined. Describe the discrepancy model, Leah. Go now.
The discrepancy model?
Yeah.
Where there's a discrepancy in
You
their
can't use
ability.
the word to define. No,
Okay,
so
it's
go.
where there's
Yeah,
there's a gap between the ability and their performance.
absolutely. That's exactly right. See, you know it. And yes, there's a discrepancy between what they can do and what they should be able to do. Is that the way they diagnose learning disabilities now?
No.
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 That's good. Just remember, that's the old way of doing it, right? What do all of these disabilities have in common? Every one of them.
They affect the students' learning.
Affects the student's learning, which in turn is also in common. What's learning in common with the body? Your brain. Every one of these things is a brain issue.
Your brain
right?
and how it
You guys, yeah, exactly.
processes.
Do you guys remember back in biology? You got nerve cells, and I'll see if I can draw them right.
Um,
All right, you got a nerve cell, and here's a nucleus, and you got these things that come off.
Axons.
Yes,
I'm terrible with science, so I don't remember all the words.
that's a synapse, right? That's exactly right.
Isn't it a problem with how often the synapses shoot across each
Yeah.
other to
Yeah, absolutely.
communicate, or
There's
how
a
much
number of different
one person,
things.
the one side shoots over, how much the one can connect?
It's like this is acetylcholine, for example. I think that's the name of it. Man, it's been a long time since I'm a biology major.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I have a degree in biology, and I just
Wow.
cannot remember for the life of me. It's
I
been
don't.
that long. There's this chemical that shoots across the nerve endings, this synapse right here, this right here between the synapse. There are chemicals that shoot across that, and that's how you get function, right? That's how I move my arms. That's also how learning takes place. So when learning takes place, these chemicals move back and forth across the brain. When there is a disability, there may be a break there. There may be a break here. There may be a problem with this chemical here. There are certain chemicals that block that chemical moving across that synapse. So it all depends what type of disability there are. Now, I can't tell you which disability affects what. You think I would know that, but I don't. All I know is it's a brain function. Same thing with ADHD. Same thing with communication disorder. Something is keeping these chemicals from moving
Well, and
across.
it's the same thing with like depression and
Absolutely. Depression is caused by too much of a chemical in the brain, like serotonin. And it's SSRI, serotonin, no, SRRI. Serotonin reuptake something inhibitor. That's what a depression drug is. And if there's too much of a chemical in the brain, like serotonin, then it could cause depression. So this is like a micro, huge blown up view of the brain, but every one of these disabilities have a brain nerve thing in common, depending on what part of the brain there is. It's interesting. I should have brought it up. I've got another app on my
you
iPad.
just are forgetting to
I
write
know.
everything. Come on.
Email
Rachel,
me.
email him.
Thank you. And you pull the app up, and it's got a picture of the brain, and I can twist it around and move it, and I can touch the part of the brain, and it tells me all the different disorders associated with the brain, and then what has caused it, and what are the characteristics and stuff.
Hasn't there been some brain research that says that they're finding now that different parts of the brain can perform the same job as they previously thought was in a specific area?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. And they've shown that in research where, let's say, Mike is in an accident and the front part of his brain is destroyed for some reason and it performs, I can't remember what the front part does. I think I know that too.
Memory recall.
Let's say you have short-term memory issues there once you have that. Over time, you could retrain the brain to form those gaps, jump those, use chemicals and form new brain connections on another part of the brain that may help refix that. It's better in children. Because, adults, we have pretty much formed our brain mass. And when it gets injured, it's injured. But children are forming those connections all the time. So it's easier in children for forming those connections. So if they have a brain injury, sometimes children can bounce right back. Adults are really pretty hard to do that. So.
Because they are still, like, kids are they learn behavior. Like,
That's true, yeah, absolutely. Because we know as a baby, you guys have kids, you have a soft spot in their brain. It's kind of funny to feel that, right? There's a soft spot there because it gives the brain to grow, a chance to grow. And if you look at a skull, that there are fissures in the skull where your brain eventually grows and your skull grows. So their brain is growing constantly. At our age, our brains are done growing. So you got what you got, right? Kids, you got what you got. You don't have to fit, right? So anyway, so that's what all of these have in common. So that is last week's little quiz. Congratulations, you all passed that.
Yay.
I know. All right, something you've been looking forward to, page 69 in your textbook. We're going to start talking about RTI, MTSS, and I don't think we're going to do PBIS because you're already doing that in your other class.
Yeah.
And when I put this in here, it just happened to be in the syllabus that I did not develop. That
Page
I thought,
69?
you know what? I'm just gonna. It's page 69. I had the page wrong the last week, didn't I?
Our page.
Page textbook, page 69. Is that right?
This is preferential intervention.
That's
Pre-referral
probably not
intervention.
it.
Yeah, this is like referral to education, special education.
Overview students.
I think you gave us the wrong chapter again.
Jeez.
I can tell you in our other book, because we.
All right. Well, I did give you a roundabout way. It doesn't talk about. It does not talk about RTI, but it talks about referral special education and how that happens. I don't even know if MTSS is in here or RTI is in here.
It's in our other book.
I think it might be. Let me see if well, whatever. Regardless, I'm said irregardless.
I was thinking, I'm so glad you didn't say your
Regardless.
See,
Read.
we have.
Okay,
Right here.
MTSS
Tier 1, 2, tier 2.
Tier 1, 2 tier. We're going
170.
to talk about those soon. Page 170. Thank you. Why did I put 69? Page 170. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. We're going to talk about all those different things, but we're going to talk about basically we're going to define response to intervention right now, which is RTI is what that means. What is response to intervention? Does anybody know off the top of your head?
3 tiers.
3 tiers. That's correct.
I had.
Targeted at changing a behavior or encouraging.
That is correct. 3 tiers used to target a behavior, which would be learning or a physical behavior, all right? Or emotional behavior.
And also,
Okay.
it's kind of like an intervention process to track at-risk students as they work their way towards.
That's correct.
Special education.
That's exactly right. It's a problem-based approach to help remediate individuals that have at-risk tendencies, right? It is also the new way that they diagnose individuals to go into special education or having learning disabilities. By law, IDEA says that individual teachers must use research-based instruction and strategies to teach students. And that also means they must use these research-based instructional strategies to teach them before, or try to remediate them before they move into special education. So technically, anytime before Leah or Amanda get students, they should have gone through the RTI process. Should have.
Which that's kind of like the SIP process, right? Is what some people
Yes. Yeah.
call. Because if it comes to a point, like, usually before you have a SIP, you have to have evidence saying you tried all those interventions and you're
That's
stuck
exactly
and
right.
you need more ideas.
And actually even, by the way, your RTI paper is going to be due next week also. It's on Moodle. I just erased that. But it's a process that they actually would do before they form the SIT team.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because then you would have all that stuff recorded. Because when you go to a SIP
Yes.
meeting, you need to have
That's
your data
exactly right.
saying, hey, I've done all this, it's not working, I need
Yeah.
more help coming up with ideas.
And what I've done on Moodle, I've given you the website for Kansas, which Kansas is so awesome, we have to call it something different. So it's multi-tiered system of supports. And they have their own symposium on it. They give you graphics on it. It gives you a number of different things. I'm not going to look at all of that right now, but everything we talk about it here in class tonight is going to be on that. So you can look at that anytime you want to, because at the very top it gives you presentations, resources, training, all that stuff.
Wow.
Now, on one hand, your school districts should have been talking about MTSS for a long time if you're in Kansas. They should have for the last at least 5 years.
Mine didn't last year.
Yeah, and it really surprises me that they don't focus on response to intervention in your schools. Some of them are still finding it hard to buy into it.
like when I remember last year, Cassie would say, "Oh yeah, we had these, you know, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3." I go,
Yeah.
"Yeah, no, we didn't have those certain things where these certain kids had to be seen. We didn't do that."
Yeah. Which, it's discouraging for me as a teacher, as a professor, to say, okay, this is what the law is saying, this is what you should be doing, and schools aren't then implementing it. They may say, well, we are implementing it, we're just not calling it that. However, this is basically the model we're going to look at right now. We'll talk about the
Where did
different
you find
tiers. That is on Moodle under RTI, right under MTSS. I can't remember. I'd have to look at that again. Go back. So if we look at the green, blue, and red parts of the triangle, notice that on the right-hand side it says RTI. That's that bracket. This is all RTI. Tier 1, let's look at the benchmark level. This is where 80% of the students in the classroom respond to the core curriculum. So if you're teaching math right now, 80% of your kids in your class are going to respond to that math concept. Should. If you have 40 kids in class, okay, let's make it, okay, what's 80% of 40?
8% of 40, about 32.
Look at you. So about 32 kids in there are going to fall in the green area. Or if Leah she's teaching English class and
Science. She's science and
Science.
social.
science and social studies, I forget.
Yeah, you keep saying
I
that.
know, whatever.
I teach individual goals though too, so I do.
That's true. Well, let's say you are a classroom teacher of science and you're teaching biology. You have also had kids with behavioral issues in class. So when you're teaching specific behaviors like we have a set of rules, we follow those, and the consequences, and kid keeps acting up, about 80% of the kids in class will get that, right? Or more. So you can do either behavior or academics. Okay? This is also, have you looked at RTI for behavioral intervention and plan and stuff like that?
Yes.
Okay, well this may help reinforce that a little bit. So tier 1, 80% of the kids, actually everybody's getting instruction here, everybody, 100% of the kids. Of those 100%, 80% are going to get it. The next level goes up. If those kids aren't getting it, let's say get it, they move up to tier 2. It's a strategic level. This is where students that aren't responding adequately to this curriculum move to this level for more one-on-one intensive instruction with what type of strategies? Say again?
You use positive behavior supports, but
You could do that too. Positive behavior supports also include what type of strategies? Research-based.
Yes.
And once again, let's back up then. All right, tell me what you think then research-based strategies
Well, strategies that are based on research.
are. Leah, really? Yes, we know that.
Well, practices that have proven effective with students when implemented.
Okay, very good. Okay, good. Which means how do you know they've been proven effective?
Because
actually
they had
Because
to be
someone has
tested.
been published.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
There we go. Yeah. Somebody's published it.
That
Somebody's
has a
collected
fancy
data.
name.
And
That's
that's why
right.
a lot of people have done the positive behavior intervention. Because,
Absolutely.
like,
There's a lot of
seen all
research
over the
on
place.
Did
it.
you know
Lots
that-
of research.
That the schools were actually sued by PBS.
Really?
Yes, because it used to be called PBS and now it has to be PBIS.
PBIS.
Because PBS actually sued them.
Yes.
What, like the public broadcasting
Yes.
service?
Why
Isn't
did
that
they
stupid?
sue them? Because they
Because
took
they
their
were
name?
taking-
Yes.
yeah. So, I'm trying to
Sorry,
remember.
it's
That's all right. I don't know what I'm talking about. That's my ADD. You get me right off.
Well, you know, we have it too. We totally come up with random things to
I know. Research-based means, yes, they collect the data on it. They publish this information. It's not just, okay, Micah, I've got this strategy that works in math. It works good. It's not that. It can be, but for it to be research-based, it's got to be peer-reviewed in some type of journal. What kind of educational journals are out there?
Lots.
Lots. There's tons of them, especially in special ed, Council of Exceptional Children. Say it again. I didn't.
How is her answer good?
Because I know her, and I'm just like, I expect that out of her.
APA
Yeah,
is one of
yeah,
them.
exactly. Just kidding.
Yeah.
APA, Council of Exceptional Children, Teaching Exceptional Children. There are 2
Education Journal.
education journal. And remember, I hope you're all looking into joining Council of Exceptional Children. By the way, if you do join that, you get those magazines in the mail.
And you get emails every day.
Yeah, absolutely, that's true. You do. And they do give you emails every day about different strategies you can use and what states are doing, things like that. So, But those are peer-reviewed journals, and they're hard to get things published. I've tried to get stuff published in CEC. We've been turned down. It's pretty tough.
Aw.
So I know.
You even have your doctorate.
I know. Well, it's very competitive. So anyway, peer-reviewed journals give you research-based intervention and strategies, and that's where you start using that here. Okay, you use them here too, but they specifically want you to focus on those here when they move up to this next level. Supplemental instructional provided. You could pull a kid out here. You can say, okay, in reading or math or science, whatever, they pull them out and put them down in Mr. Smith's room because Mr. Smith is good at reading or math. They put him down there and Mr. Smith helps him with this math problem or whatever. And they do intensive one-on-one instruction right here or group instruction right here. So you get about 15% of the students there. Okay? What happens when these kids here finally get the concept?
Go
Then,
back down.
They can move back down.
yeah,
Can I write on this?
because this should be a, what is the word? What's the word? Well, you know, like, I'm thinking of like in reading groups. It's a constant change. Like, if a kid improves, it moves up,
Absolutely.
you know?
It's a tiered system. It just goes tiered backwards then, right? It's either way. So if a kid gets it here, they move back down to where their typically developing peers are.
You thinking of the word dynamic?
Maybe.
It's a good word. There, I praised you, Leah, right there. It's a good word.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So these kids here, if they get it, they move back down. But they're about, of those 15%, there's 5% of the students that don't get it here. So they move on up to the next level, intensive level. This was maybe 30 or 40 minutes a day they're pulled out and put into reading groups. My daughter did that. She was having trouble reading in second grade.
Mhm.
Yeah. So they pull her out and put her with reading groups. They also put her in math groups. So they put her in those groups to help remediate her.
And
She
they
didn't have to go
informed
to
you of
special
that,
ed.
right?
Yeah, they informed me of that. Sent a letter home. Hey, Janae is exhibiting characteristics of these things. We'd like to put her in these groups and so many minutes a day. And at the end of the day, we'll put her in this math group right before she goes home, stuff like that. So,
Did you like that or have?
yeah, I
what
did,
grade
as a
was
matter
she-
of fact.
What grade was she in?
She was in second or third.
How did she respond?
She was okay with it. Yeah, she
Yeah.
was like, oh, I hate going to do math. But I'm like, Janae, you need to do it because it's
Yeah.
good for you. Yeah. But it did remediate her because she can read now and she's learning math better. Still, but notice she didn't have to go to special ed. She could have later on, I suppose, or she could have here if they didn't do this process. So he goes, well, she's exhibiting this. Let's go do that. So, this is where the students do not respond to interventions at tiers 1 and 2, and it's more intensive one-on-one up here. If they do not respond here, notice they're eligible to be determined if they've got special education. They need special education services. If they don't get the content here, the 5%, they move them up here and they call it intervention resistant. So if those interventions, if they're trying and trying, they don't do it, they label intervention resistant and they're eligible for referral to special education. Okay? That makes sense? Lots of research going on about response to intervention, lots of stuff going on about this. Douglas and Lynn Fuchs, I put an article on Moodle about it. They're from Vanderbilt University, and they've done quite a bit of research on response to intervention. If the students get it here, they can move back down here. And then eventually, if they can get moved back down here. This is the new way to determine if they need special education services. And notice there's no mention of an IQ here at all. There's no mention of their discrepancy here. We know there's a discrepancy, big deal. We just want to make sure we can remediate those problems here. Can this also cure the problem of poor teaching? It can't, but it helps try to pinpoint if there's issues with teaching. Now, I'm not saying their teachers, okay, I know there are teachers out there that some aren't very good. I
Well,
understand
and it
that.
might even like, some teachers don't try to differentiate whatsoever.
That's exactly right. And
Or
what
they
type
don't know
of,
how.
yeah,
Or they,
it's
yeah.
usually the older teachers, right? The ones that are like 70 or 65. They just, line them up in rows, and that's the way we teach them. And now it's changed, and it looks like this classroom, in elementary school. Even math and in middle school, you kind of look like this. You put them in pods and do stuff with them, right? So with this model, this is the new way of doing it. It's not really super new. It's probably 10 or 15, 20 years old. It's just, this is what we need to see now. This is what's going to happen. Now, who implements this? Yeah, who implements response to intervention?
Isn't it the special education team that decides where they go?
Only here.
Yeah, everybody does that.
Yeah, that's a
So
good
building
point.
wide.
Right here, this is building wide, right? So right now, as a general ed teacher, well, you're special ed and she's special ed, but general ed teachers, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. So all general ed teachers in the whole building are responsible for this. Then when they get referred here, that's where special ed comes in involved.
I know, like, at our building, at least they use us for the tier 2 and 3 support.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot.
And they do that because of your expertise in that area. So if they can use you as a special ed teacher to help remediate the problem and get them back here, that's what they do.
One thing I noticed in Olathe is that they'll usually do their, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 in the mornings, like their MTSS, and like they'll even like have the PE teacher go and work with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'll put all of them to work.
And it's the way to keep them out of special education when they don't need to go to special ed. Because of the influx of kids into special education, the goal is to keep that from happening. Well, if you think about a public school, why would they want kids out of special education? They have to pay for it. It's expensive, right? And it's another way to keep kids being labeled when they don't need to be labeled. Because we all know labeling there's a two-edged sword, and we talked about that before. But if you can keep the kids from going into special education this way, this is the most efficient way to keep them from moving on when they don't need to move into special education. What are your thoughts on this thing? Some of you have heard this before. Have you ever seen the tiers before?
Well, I was reading up on the discrepancy and like why they went that route is because there were some flaws with the discrepancy model
Absolutely.
that anyone that doesn't catch it in the primary grades and it doesn't really indicate the specific learning needs. If you're doing the intervention, you can kind of figure out what their learning needs are per
Absolutely.
level. So
Yeah.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
students learn a lot better with small, I think research has proven that kids work a lot better with smaller groups of them. Can give them more attention than a whole lot.
Absolutely. They have more opportunity to buy into the learning process and to be active in the learning process when you're in a small group.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
some kids, they don't feel as embarrassed if you're trying to work with them
That's right.
in smaller groups.
Exactly.
They can see, okay, hey, I'm not the only one who has this problem.
Yeah.
So they cannot feel so embarrassed by it.
So what are some drawbacks you think of this?
we try so hard to keep students out of special education. That's a question I asked when we were in our 5th year program at KU, we went to DeSoto, and they were really big into MTSS. So that's a question I actually asked. Okay, so how does a kid that use special education actually get in there?
Could it prolong a kid going into special ed when they really need to go into special ed?
Yeah.
Yes, it can do that. Because that's one of the biggest drawbacks is the time. How long do you think it takes to get to tier 3? Months or
I
maybe
would say
a whole
the
year?
whole school year, because what you're doing in order to progress them is you're checking their, yes, the interventions are research based, but your assessments are those that are like state assessments and stuff like
Yeah.
that. You have to use that kind of data
Absolutely.
to see if they're at the grade level. It just can't be like a school test or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I can't just go, okay, this week we're going to use this intervention. Oh, it worked. Good. Okay. It's got to be a month or two, or I think, somewhere I read 4 to 6 weeks for them to collect data on that intervention. If that intervention doesn't work, well, how far do you move in science and in math and in elementary in 4 to 6 weeks? How far in the curriculum?
Surprisingly, you can move pretty fast.
Yeah.
Wow. Pretty fast.
Yeah, you can move right along. I can move. 4 to 6 weeks. You probably, and when I was teaching science, well, it's a long time ago, maybe 2 units in 4 to 6 weeks. So I've lost a lot of kids in the process. So, you know, science
Especially
is
if they
one
don't
of
get one concept
those, absolutely.
right away, it builds
It
up.
starts to develop.
Our Common Core is broken up into those 4 main units. Right now we're doing ratios and proportionality and stuff like that. That's kind of a unit on its own. You can break that up into the smaller units, but that's a whole quarter devoted to each one of those. We have 4 quarters. I guess algebraic expressions. The number sense one is after that. I still call them by the old ones, but yeah, we're doing ratios and proportions right now. And that's a whole unit.
Kristen? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just thinking about Common Core. I was driving to work today and listening to National Public Radio. Florida's retracting, saying that it is pulling away their support from Common Core curriculum. They're starting to pull back and reassess.
Is that where the guy had the question and got in trouble and got restrained because he didn't write his question out?
What?
What?
There was a district meeting about Common Core and
That might have been part of it. I was talking
Core.
about the Florida schools in general and at the state level. They're talking about reading. Because they were like one of the people that first started the push for Common Core. And now Florida's going, whoa, we're going to pull back our support and we're going to reassess and think about it. So everybody,
Oh, that would have been someone else then. Yeah, 'cause there was
everybody was like, Common Core is like, a lot of people that are talking about it are just going, this just happened. Now what?
That's a huge
They're going-
bandwagon. Huge bandwagon. My feeling is 15 years from now, we're going to have something brand new.
Yeah, we
Mhm.
always do.
So we're buying into this whole thing.
What I do like about this is that it uses it. If the whole school is on board, or if key people are on board, it can work. And it gives the general ed teachers a sense of, like, what's the word, empowerment in trying things too if they buy into it. But then also, just because a student has an IEP doesn't mean they're going to get better. Because when they are admitted or diagnosed or whatever to special ed, these are a lot of the same things that we use. So why not try without labeling them
Good point.
first? And then, because I sit in meetings sometimes and we talk about these accommodations that we're going to use and setting the goals and everything. But we can't say, well, I mean, we can't guarantee that it's going to make their kid better or perform better. And then at the end of the year when we have to check modest improvement or no improvement noted, will they meet the goal? No.
Yeah.
You know, how does that, it's not a magical piece of paper that's suddenly going to make their kid perform.
Those kids that are being referred to special education up there, aren't they always going to be referred to special education up there? I mean, honestly, if you got the 80% here, even if I don't do RTI, aren't they still going to go into special ed? I mean, if I do RTI, they're going to go to special ed. If I don't do RTI, they're going to go to special ed. So, on one time, the argument could be, well, this is just a way to prolong them from getting into special ed. Or, oh, it's another way for us to wait and see how long they can fail. That's an old model, wait to fail model. So, let's wait to see they fail, then let's get them into special ed, right? The goal is to keep them from failing. You know, you don't want them to be in 7th grade and can't read. And all too many times we get kids that are doing that. They keep moving on. Which kids are typically moved on that have a learning disability? What type of kid? Well, LD kid. But let's say what characteristics of a kid. The kid in your class. Which one gets moved on?
The active, annoying ones that people.
That's a
just
good
don't
point.
wanna
Well, I just want to move along, right?
I mean,
There's a flip side of that too. The quiet little girl
yeah.
that doesn't bother me.
Who needs
She's
help?
such a sweet girl. I know she scored a 40 on her
catch
state
on later.
assessment, but
Yeah.
I like her. She's going to move on. Which it does a complete disservice to her. Which by the time she's in 11th grade and can't read or write very well. So this is the goal to
She's
keep
so
it.
sweet.
She is sweet, and I love her to death, and I don't want anything to happen to her, but I don't want to hold her back and keep her away from her friends. Whereas the knucklehead boy, I don't care about him. I'm holding him back. So
Giving them to the other.
And
yeah,
that,
absolutely.
And that quiet kid who's not learning will get more and more frustrated as time goes on and might begin
Absolutely.
to be acting out.
So then you got another behavioral problem on your hands. Then you're causing that by just passing them on. All All right, let's look at individual tiers. Basically, we're start with tier 1. Then I've got a little article I think from that. Tier 1 here. See if I can fit it all on here. All right. I don't know if I can. Within Tier 1, all students receive high-quality, scientifically based instruction provided by qualified personnel. Okay, is that true in all cases?
All the time.
How many times have you heard, especially let's say in urban schools, is your degree in math?
No, I know it's in education.
Do you have a math background? So, okay. Some people, okay, I got a science background, but I'm teaching physics. Okay, well, maybe. It's a stretch. Biology to say that. Well, I want to teach Algebra 1, but I've got a biology background. That's a bad thing. Does that make sense? So, the reason they do it, why do schools do that, is because they don't have somebody to teach, so they just, oh, well, you're close enough, let's put you in that spot. Well, with response intervention, the goal is to have a highly qualified teacher, and that's what, according to No Child Left Behind, you got to have highly qualified teachers. By the way, No Child Left Behind, have we talked about any about No Child Left Behind?
Not really.
Yeah, it's going to be around, but the whole premise of it is it's changed. So it's not like the only state assessment now meeting AYP. So, oh yeah, we talked about that. State assessment, dynamic learning maps, all those different things are so. All right, all students. Here's where this will be talking about inadequate instruction. This is where Tier 1 we try to remediate the issues due to inadequate instruction. So if I'm putting a kid, maybe sometime a kid clashes with a teacher. We all have had those kids.
Yeah.
Maybe they put them in this RTI process and realize Mr. Lewis can remediate this kid because this kid likes him because maybe he plays football or something like that. He hates Leah, but he goes to Micah and does just fine. So remediate that whole process, right? All students are screened on a periodic basis to establish academic and behavioral baseline. That's where you get the green part. The length of time, this step can vary, but generally it does not exceed 8 weeks. Oh my word. That's 2 months. Okay, during that time, students are monitored to use a validated screening system such as a curriculum-based measurement. So whatever validated system they're going to use. So you use some of those things right now. Like California Achievement Test is one of those. Somebody uses state formative assessment. Okay. Back in a few years back, Kansas used to offer a computerized formative assessment. Do you guys remember that at all? You don't know what I'm talking about. University of Kansas, Rockchalk. They developed a computerized formative assessment for teachers, and you could go in and build your assessment for math. That's beautiful. And on this assessment, they could highlight words, and it would read the word problem to them. And they'd pop up a calculator. You could use that calculator. And not all schools bought into it. So I did my dissertation on that. What teachers did after using this formative assessment tool. Did they change their methods and strategies? Yeah, they said they did. Oh, this is great, but I don't think they use it anymore. So this whole formative assessment piece, yes, go ahead.
The textbook companies are starting to do that.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's awesome. And
Absolutely.
you can load questions and change the questions and take them out and put them in. And yeah.
And I don't know if we talked about this last time or not, but these textbook companies are standing to make a killing now. Because the state assessment may be going away, so these textbook companies are developing assessments.
And they're finally offering modified or accommodated work.
Absolutely.
With their set.
So, like I said, I think I said this before. If you want to make money in education, go into that sector. So, at the end of this period, students showing significant progress are generally returned to the regular ed classroom. Those not showing adequate progress are moving to Tier 2. Okay, Tier 1, you're using scientifically based instruction, research-based instruction, and strategies, and you're trying to identify those at-risk students. Base level, you come up that first bottom part of the triangle. Okay? So now let's look at that article, Selecting Tier 1 Scientifically Based Core. And notice this is from the RTI Action Network. This is a very good website. It gives us a bunch of different stuff here. And I want you to take some time, and it's not very long. I want you to read through this. Once you click on that, it's from Charles Hughes and Douglas Dexter from Penn State. It's an article they wrote, and it talks about tier 1 stuff. So I'll give you about 10 minutes or so to read through that. I'm playing again.
Are you really calibrating?
Yes. See?
Seriously.
I'm like, I'm like, what's the kid? So, sun's out there.
Aw.
It's my
He
kid.
can come in here if he needs to see his mom. Oh, you need to go see him. Go get her. Oh no. Hey, some love. Oh, that is awesome. Look at that. Look at that face. That is so awesome. Oh, no. He needs his mom. He's like, I want Cheez-Its now. So,
Cool, you brought snacks.
what's his name?
Dan, her son? I think it's Daniel,
Go on.
What?
Cute cheeks.
isn't it? You sure?
Yes, ma'am.
The student I'm working with, and it's just because I'm trying to figure out how it works. In response to the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. The kid I'm working with, because we're both at home and we're within a brick and mortar school,
Mhm.
would he be considered tier 2 or tier 3 because he's at home and at the brick and mortar school? Just popped into my
Well, that's
head.
a good question. Thanks, Leah, for coming
Not that
back.
many kids do online.
He's such a sweet guy. What's his name?
Daniel.
Daniel.
Oh, see, I was right.
Yeah, yeah.
Have good memory. Long term is great.
Kristen asked, is
My short term.
her guy she works with, is he tier 1 or tier 2?
Or potentially tier
Potentially
3.
tier 3. I would say no tier 3 yet because he's not being, unless you have identified specific research-based instruction, you're going to target those reading or math or issues that he's having. Because you've already
I don't have
gone.
enough support staff to do that.
Yeah, you're the only one. Now, I would say he's not tier 3 because he hasn't gone through tier 2 yet.
Okay.
I would say he's tier 2, since you've identified he's got disability, somewhat disability. And I would say he's actually out of the RTI model. He's in a special ed. Because does he have an IEP yet?
He has no IEP.
IEP.
They're supposed to be. He's 12 and he doesn't have an IEP yet. They're supposed to be doing the IEP this fall,
Okay.
and
If they're doing
Wow,
that,
that-
technically he could be in tier 3. If they're working on one on this fall, if they're working, he's in tier 3 and he's still intervention resistant, they know he's going to move over to special ed. But I would say he hasn't moved up because he hasn't gone through the tiers yet. So
it was just something that popped in my head. I'm going,
Yeah.
I wonder.
Is he doing K-12 just because they want him to, or is it because he can't
He's
function
doing.
in the regular school?
There was some problems with regular school this past year in the fact that there was some bullying by a para. And
that's never good.
and there were some things that, even working in special ed, you don't say certain things around the kids because you never know what they're listening and you don't know what they're taking in and then what they put out. He asked his mom one day, because evidently he overheard a sped teacher or another teacher say, "Does inadequate mean stupid? Is that mean?" Because someone was saying that, and he might be a bit slow on the uptake occasionally, but I'm sorry, he hears perfectly well and he can say perfectly well. And mom pulled him out because of the bullying and because of that other incident. And
Which probably could be one of the reasons that she's litigious about
I think the school district was the.
Yeah.
But they have him in Lawrence Virtual School because it can be more specialized depending upon how he's doing, and it also allows accommodation for his physical therapy, his speech therapy, his occupational.
Okay,
therapy.
that's what I was wondering, if that would bump him further up if he was in that because
Yeah.
he couldn't
that.
function.
Has he already had
like
an
if they were
IEP
using
before?
that as an intervention.
Not that I know of. As
So-
far as I know, he has had no IEP.
So how does he get speech therapy, occupational therapy? How does he get those
Yeah.
things?
He has a documented vaccine injury. He had 2 prolonged seizures at 4 months of age after the DPT vaccine, and there were some brain damage issues.
And who pays for the occupational therapy, physical therapy?
Um,
If mom pays for it, that's no big deal. But if the school district,
the trust set aside by the vaccine company because they actually took the vaccine company to court, and won.
Okay.
and now there's an educational and
Okay.
perpetual care trust.
Yeah.
To
Well, they
take care of.
could easily make a case because you're paying professionals to do therapy that they could already get therapy through the school district or whatever school
Well,
district.
I have to adjust the fact that he gets speech therapy through the school, but his physical therapy is outside of the school, and his other physical and physiological treatments are outside of the school.
But it's kind of an interesting situation.
Yeah, I was just curious. I didn't mean to completely
'Cause- no,
sideline
it's
stuff,
okay.
but I didn't know where.
Because technically the school could say, no, we're not going to service this student because he's not gone through their diagnosis process or he's not gone through the process of coming in and being evaluated unless they're still working on that. So,
That's unfortunately where I'm.
Yeah.
Kind of like a mushroom. I'm kept in the dark.
Under tier 1, it gives us 5 components of early effective reading instruction.
Yep.
These are our research-based instruction, phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, text comprehension. These two right here, well, phonemic awareness, that's a big thing. Phonics, however,
Well, at least,
yes,
well, hold on.
this is a relationship between letters and written language and individual sounds. Phonemic awareness, the sounds of spoken language work together and make words, okay? Like at makes cat, we know that, right? But also with the letters of the written word, hooked on phonics, remember back in the day?
Yeah.
That's good up to a certain point, and after a certain point, I think it's like 3rd grade, it just doesn't work. Because the kid has to have that phonemic awareness before they can move on. So phonics is a training tool, basically. Okay. Bridging, that's not what I want to do. All right,
Which also, when the 5 components, like
yes,
daily 5, it really, they have, I don't know if you guys heard, like the I pick, and there's like a rap to go with it. All goes like, so that they pick good fit books. All that goes like, they'll be comprehending, can
Yeah,
you read
absolutely.
it, all that.
they put a lot of that stuff together, and, well, a lot of these companies do that just for, making it easier for the teachers with these processes of RTI. And also when they do get to special education, they have this set of this toolbox of stuff that they can use. So the goal is by the time you get to your own special ed classroom and you have yours, that you have a set of tools, you have a repertoire of these are strategies I use all the time. This works for this kid, this doesn't work, but I'm gonna use this strategy on this kid and see what happens. So, and speaking to the professional, do you have kids that never get it?
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, they just never get the concept. Not because that they're being
And they're
hard or
trying.
mean. Yeah, so
They
they're
just-
trying. How many tears
then
do you
there's
get
some that
because
are.
they can't get it? You know, they
Yeah.
try and try and try, and they just don't get it.
And it's hard too, going back to interventions, is when, with that model of trying interventions, seeing it fail, and then take it away to let them fail again.
Yes.
So, I mean, so you build it up and try something, and then sometimes you have to take it away because you're trying to bring them back down, and then they regress. And so
Yeah.
it's not fair to them either.
No.
You know, like,
But it's very frustrating, and you're going to notice, you're going to find out, and she'll tell you as a special ed teacher, very frustrating, because you day in and day out you use strategies, and they work. Sometimes they're not reinforced at home, and then they come back to school and you have to reteach that same
or
strategy.
even in other classrooms.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's a whole other issue itself. You send them back to their classroom, and the teachers aren't reinforcing, and they're not helping you. It's back to the us versus me, us versus them idea. You want to take about a 5-minute break,
Sure.
and then come back. 5 minutos. 5.
Hey, where's my case study on?
Too bad your son's not still here.